It was a chilly summer evening, and I was staying in this rustic cabin nestled deep in the heart of the Rocky Mountains. The cabin was part of a small, secluded community with about 10 other cabins scattered around a serene, crystal-clear lake. Towering pines surrounded us, their branches swaying gently in the breeze, casting long shadows that danced on the ground. The air smelled of pine needles and damp earth, and at night, the only sounds were the distant hoot of an owl or the gentle ripple of water lapping against the shore. I was there with my family for a week-long retreat. It was supposed to be a relaxing getaway, fishing, hiking, and roasting marshmallows by the fire. But as it turned out, this trip was anything but ordinary. It was during this trip that I encountered something I still can't fully explain. Now, let me tell you about Jake and Sam. Jake, my older brother, was 2 years my senior and, in my eyes, the epitome of cool. He was fearless, adventurous, and always pushing boundaries. Sam, on the other hand, was Jake's best friend. Sam was a bit of a wild card, always coming up with wild ideas that somehow always seemed to involve breaking a rule or two. And then there was me, the youngest, the tag-along, always trying to keep up with him even when I knew I shouldn't. The first couple of days went by uneventfully. We spent our mornings fishing by the lake and our afternoons exploring the nearby trails. But on the third night, Jake and Sam decided to up the ante. They wanted to check out the old hiking trail. The trail they were talking about had been closed for years, something about it being unsafe, but that only made it more appealing to them. I hesitated. The idea of wandering into a closed-off trail in the dead of night wasn't exactly my idea of fun, but Jake gave me that look, the one that said I shouldn't be scared. And just like that, I found myself slipping on my sneakers and grabbing a flashlight. The trailhead was about a 10-minute walk from our cabin. The moment we stepped onto it, the air seemed to change. It was colder, and the usual chirping of crickets and rustling of leaves was absent. I remember clutching my flashlight tightly, the beam of light bouncing as we walked deeper into the woods. Jake and Sam were ahead of me, talking quietly and laughing at some joke I didn't catch. About 20 minutes in, Sam stopped abruptly. He asked if we heard anything. We all froze, straining our ears. At first, there was nothing, but then, faintly, I heard it too. A low, guttural growl, so soft that it could have been mistaken for the wind. Jake said it was probably just an animal and brushed it off, but his voice wavered slightly. We kept walking, though I could feel the tension rising. The trail had become narrower, the trees pressing in on us from both sides. The flashlight beams seemed to struggle against the darkness, barely illuminating the path ahead. And then, something appeared. At first, it was just a shadow, tall and slender, standing motionless among the trees. My heart stopped. Jake called out to it, trying to sound firm but with an edge of fear. There was no response. It just stood there, its head tilted slightly as if observing us. Sam picked up a rock and hurled it in its direction, telling it to leave. The rock didn't even make it halfway before the shadow moved. And when I say moved, I don't mean it walked or ran. It glided, almost like it was floating, covering the distance between us in an instant. We screamed and took off running, the flashlight beams swinging wildly as we sprinted back the way we came. I've never run so fast in my life. The trail seemed endless, and no matter how far we went, I could still hear that low growl, closer now, almost right behind us. My legs burned, my chest heaved, but I didn't dare stop. I glanced back once, just once, and what I saw will haunt me forever. The thing was right there, barely a few feet behind us. Its glowing eyes pierced the darkness. Its skin was pale, almost translucent, and its limbs were impossibly long, ending in sharp claws. It let out a piercing screech, a sound so inhuman and chilling that it froze me in my tracks for a split second. Jake grabbed my arm and yanked me forward, urging me not to stop. Somehow, we made it back to the cabin, slamming the door shut behind us. We huddled together in the living room, all three of us shaking and gasping for air. We didn't say a word. What could we say? We all knew what we'd seen, but none of us wanted to admit it. The rest of the night was a blur. I remember locking every door and window, drawing the curtains, and sitting with my back against the wall, clutching a fireplace poker like it would somehow protect me. None of us slept. Every creak of the cabin, every rustle of the wind outside, made my heart race. When morning finally came, the world seemed normal again. The sun was shining, birds were chirping, and the lake sparkled like nothing had happened. But we knew better. Jake and Sam swore me to secrecy, and we never spoke of that night again. At least, not for a long time. Years later, I tried to make sense of what we'd encountered. I scoured the internet, searching for stories or sightings that matched what we saw. That's when I stumbled upon an old forum post about the trail. Someone had written about a creature that was said to haunt the area. According to the post, it was drawn to fear, feeding off it like a predator stalking its prey. Reading that sent shivers down my spine. It meant that whatever we saw that night wasn't just our imagination. It was real, and it had been watching us, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. Even now, I can't hike through a forest without feeling a twinge of unease. Every shadow feels a little too long, every sound a little too close. And every time I think about that night, I wonder, what would have happened if we hadn't run fast enough? Or if it had decided not to let us go? Some nights, I wake up in a cold sweat. The memory of those glowing eyes burned into my mind. And every now and then, I catch myself glancing over my shoulder, half expecting to see it standing silently in the shadows, waiting.